Greetings, I'm Jeff Carter with Seattle City Club. Today, as part of the Civic Bootcamp on Women in Action, Leadership Towards an Equitable Pandemic Economy, I'll be talking with Brittany Do, a current student at the University of Washington and author of Bigger Than Leadership. Welcome, Brittany, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff. I'm really excited to talk to everyone today.
So can you just tell me a little bit about yourself, who you are, what your year in school, major, etc.?
Yeah, definitely. I'm Brittany, and I'm a rising junior at the University of Washington. I'm majoring in business administration and specifically within that, finance with a sales certificate. Overall, I'm really passionate about learning as much as I can from different people as well as various resources and just being involved in my community, because I strongly believe in the quote and the phrase that the more you give, the more you get out of it. And no matter what, everyone has something else to offer. And I think that collectively, this is so valuable.
What are you involved in the community? You said you're passionate about community involvement. What kind of activities are you doing?
Yeah, definitely. I am really involved in an RSO, so registered or a student organization, like a club basically at UW, and it's called UW FA, so the University of Washington Finance Association. Here I am a director of member development, and basically I like to think that we're a really fun committee that helps organize and develop relationships and bonds between the students in our club as well as the different officers, and making sure that our team is really good and we know each other beyond just a professional aspect, so then we can work together better. Aside from this, I also am really passionate about donating blood. I believe I am on pint 11, if I remember correctly,
Wow.
of donating blood. And I used to go every couple months because you have to wait for 8 months before you can donate again. But then my iron level started getting a little lower. So I now try to donate every 3 months instead. And I really believe in doing this because I know that there are so many people who rely on blood donations in order to just live. And I'm not really scared of needles. I don't have a major issue with them. So it's not really that much of a scary experience to me. And I think it's more just the anticipation that gets me nervous more than anything else. But then once I'm in the chair, I'm good to go.
And the blood supply in our community is pretty low, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
It's been pretty low throughout the entire pandemic because people have been staying at home more and have been more cautious due to COVID, which totally understandable. And unfortunately, the blood supply has been low because of that.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of the pandemic, what has your experience been like as a student, financially, socially, educationally, throughout this current and year and a half of pandemic so far?
Yeah, definitely. So financially, I used to work at my local YMCA over breaks during college. And I know that I, as well as everyone else, got furloughed because of the pandemic. And I imagine that so many other people also lost their job or didn't have as many financial resources. For socially, I've been staying at home for the past almost 2 years now. And that has been such a major change because it feels like I'm back in high school, honestly. Once I left for college, I was living in a dorm with 2 roommates. And because of this, I got to have a lot more freedom, really be able to hang out with my friends, study with them, just be able to be a lot more independent. And because of the pandemic, it's been a little bit more challenging in seeing people instead of seeing people face to face. I've been a really big fan of FaceTime calls, so that has been really helpful. And because UW also has a free Zoom membership for all of the students, I've also been Zooming a lot of my friends. And I think that this is one of the benefits coming out of the pandemic, realizing that we have these alternatives to seeing people face to face, although nothing will ever really replace that aspect of being able to talk to someone, see their whole body language, just interact with them on a level that's really there, where they're really close by rather than just through a screen. And then for the last part of that, I think that educationally, because classes have been online, again, usually through Zoom, that has been a little tougher because rather than studying for the normal tests that you would take in person, instead all of the tests and quizzes have been online. And this serves as a different challenge because you're expected to almost study differently in that you usually have access to your notes and any of the textbooks that you might use because this way instructors believe that it levels the overall playing field, which I think is true. And it can be a little harder to just study and find the motivation as well, because I know that a lot of my friends and I have been struggling with Zoom fatigue because you're on your laptop for many hours of the day and then trying to get that motivation to study even more and stay on your laptop for longer is tough. So I'm excited to be back in school and hopefully everything will be good in person.
Hmm. What would you say are any of the unique challenges that female students would face or face now?
Yeah, definitely. I think one major thing is just having that level of mentorship because whenever you're a woman, there might not be other people who look like you in the spots that you see yourself in the next few years. For example, if you are in a male dominated industry and you're hoping to work in your career there, then finding a mentor who can guide you and give you advice, that can be tricky sometimes. So really figuring out, okay, this is maybe I want to work in STEM, maybe I want to be an engineer, and then finding that person who can guide you, whether that is an upperclassman student or a business professional, an industry, someone in the industry, that is so valuable. And sometimes there aren't as many women in those fields because it is a male dominated field.
Mhm. Is gender equity something that you are considering on a regular basis in terms of your studies and your future work?
Yeah, definitely. I know that I really value diversity as a whole in people and in thought because when you have the ability to have various people from very many different backgrounds, you don't have as many blind spots usually because sometimes if people grow up in a similar environment from a similar background, then they'll have a more or less similar line of thought. And this is okay. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that there might be a different perspective where maybe if they're looking at one specific problem, they can't figure out more than one solution. But then with another person's perspective, they're able to think back on their own experience that is different from the others and figure out multiple solutions. And I think that overall, I'm personally interested in management consulting. I know that there's a lot of, and there's a big emphasis on diversity there and making sure that there is more equity in bringing in women. So I really value that. And I think that no matter what, there's always room for improvement in every single industry.
Mhm. So what are the positive, if there are any, outcomes of this whole pandemic for you, and your experience as a student, or just you're thinking about the future?
Yeah, definitely. I think the one major thing I've learned during this pandemic is that although I personally think of myself as an extrovert, I've really found ways to be by myself and just appreciate being by myself rather than almost having to rely on other people to do something with them and to just have fun. So instead, I've been going on some long walks around my neighborhood and beyond my neighborhood. And I think that that's just been one of the major highlights of my experience because otherwise, hypothetically, if COVID hadn't happened, I would have been on campus and those long walks wouldn't have happened. And I wouldn't have realized how much I enjoy just being by myself sometimes and being able to just savor those little moments in life. I think that that's one of the things that hopefully everyone can take away from COVID, just finding those little moments and those little pockets of joy within the rest of life. And I think that also ties into the entire experience of life, because sometimes there will always be those challenges and obstacles that bring us down, but figuring out those little moments where we can really experience the best parts of life and enjoy them to the fullest is really important.
Hmm, that's great. In this Civic Bootcamp series, we're highlighting women leaders. Why do you think it's important to highlight and recognize the contributions of women leaders in our community?
Yeah, I think it's so important because oftentimes a lot of women, their aspirations, their achievements, and what they actually do to contribute to the greater community or to their families, I think that usually goes unnoticed because there are so many amazing inventions, amazing things that have happened in history, but we just don't know about them unless we actively search for it sometimes. And really being able to push this forward and to highlight these women and what they're doing, I think will inspire a lot more others, because sometimes if you're a young woman and you're interested in one particular industry, you might really be interested in it, but you might not see again that person who you're looking towards as a mentor, so someone who you can go to for guidance and for advice. So really being proactive about highlighting women and their achievements and recognizing them for who they are, I think will inspire so many people.
Mhm. And what role do you think women leaders play in our community as we respond to the pandemic?
Mhm. I think they play as big a role as anyone else, because no matter what, I strongly believe in, no matter who you are impacting and influencing people around you. Even if you don't know the people around you, you have some degree of impact on them. And especially if you know the person who's sitting right next to you, and maybe that's a family member, maybe that's a best friend, you're having an even greater influence and impact on them because of your guys' relationship. And being able to recognize that and know that you are making a difference no matter who you are, no matter where you are too, I think that's so important. And especially when women have historically been the ones to stay at home and take care of their family and take care of their children. I know that this story has been changing, and I'm so happy and excited because of that, because women are so much more, and limiting women to this certain definition, I think, is not necessarily the best, because everyone has so much potential, and really making sure that people know they have potential and know that they are capable of achieving these really great things is powerful, because it
Mhm.
empowers them to really push forward and to continue forward and just accomplish such amazing things. And especially because there are so many women who are making a difference, is whether that is helping others on the front line, like frontline workers, nurses, doctors, so actively fighting COVID, or in the supply chain. I know that the supply chain has been a little rocky overall, and just helping out in those battles, everything matters and everything adds up and compounds to where we are now.
Mhm. You've written a book already. Congratulations. And I'll give you the full name: Bigger Than Leadership: Stories of Influence, Intention, and Inspiration. So, what are some of the key takeaways that you've kind of gleaned from writing this book about leadership, especially during these pandemic times?
Mhm, definitely. So, to give you a little bit of a backstory, I interviewed 85 people all across the world. So, I talked to some people in Japan, some people in Australia, UK, Sweden, the Czech Republic. And overall, I realized that as I was interviewing these very different people at various stages of their life and in these different industries and on these different paths, there are so many similarities between the people. And although, of course, there are differences because everyone is different, everyone's unique in their own way, we're all really similar no matter where we are. And I think remembering that in life is really valuable because sometimes we have to seek to understand the other person and their perspective and then provide them with our own perspective and then come to something in the middle, just so that we're coming from a place of understanding the other person rather than attacking the other person. Another thing that I learned from this experience is that no matter who you are, you have a story. And I talked to so many people, and everyone was just incredible being able to hear their stories. And I could only squeeze so many of them in the book. Otherwise, it would have been a really long book. But everyone shared probably like 3 to 5 stories with me. And being able to hear this was really, really the highlight of my entire experience, because I think connecting with others, especially when you're in a pandemic and you're staying at home a lot of the time, continuing to meet these other people who are so interesting is incredibly important, because you have this level of connecting with others that you wouldn't have usually. And whether that's connecting with people in your communities now or online still, I think both are really valuable. And no matter what you choose to do, just being able to learn more about the others, about the other people around you and about their backgrounds, that is life changing.
Hmm. What do you think we need more of in terms of leadership during the pandemic?
I think we need to understand how we are leaders for other people around us, but also for ourselves, because sometimes there were actually quite a few people who told me during my interviews that they wouldn't have been the person who took that first step unless someone recognized them and told them, hey, I think you should do this. I think you would be great at it. And just knowing that and having that self-confidence is so important. Of course, balancing that with humility is really essential, but also recognizing that no matter who you are capable, and recognizing how you can be the best version of yourselves every day and improving that 1%. So then again, it compounds as you go, and just that you can be an even better version of yourself every single day.
So for other students or anyone in general who might see this, and based on what you just said, what suggestions or advice would you give to people who want to kind of step into their own leadership, personal or otherwise, role, or get involved in a community, but don't really know where to start or how to get involved?
Yeah, definitely. I think there are 3 main steps that you can do. And the first one is to reflect on what you are passionate about. I wouldn't have realized I was passionate about donating blood if I hadn't done it that first time, and then learned more about it, realized that there usually is a lack of a blood supply, and especially now in COVID times compared to before. So just taking that first step to realize, okay, this is what I'm interested in. Maybe this is what I could be like really, really passionate about later on, to learning more about it through other people or through the internet. If you can find something online, I am a big fan of Google.
Mhm.
Then definitely take that resource and take advantage of it, because we do have the internet and it is really helpful. And then also talking to people that you might know in the community. Maybe you are really interested in aerospace and you don't know anyone who's directly affiliated with that, but if you have a friend who has another friend who has a parent who's in the industry, definitely don't hesitate to reach out to them, because if you don't ask, then the result will automatically be a no anyway. But if you ask, there is that potential of being able to talk to someone who's right there in center and have their experience, and ask them, have the ability to ask them different questions and gain that knowledge from them.
Mhm.
And then number 3, just continue forward and persevere no matter what. I really like the quote from Finding Nemo that Dory says, just keep swimming, because no matter what, there will always be obstacles and challenges that we face in our daily lives. That's just a part of what life is. And I personally don't think that life would be as fulfilling and worthwhile if we didn't have these challenges, because if we were always in a state of happiness and in a state of joy, then that wouldn't really contrast anything, and it might not be the best situation and the best environment to grow and develop ourselves. So being able to persevere and go past these obstacles, I think is really beneficial to our learning experience as a whole. So even if you're facing a lot of rejections, keep trying, keep reflecting on what you like and what you don't like, because also knowing what you don't like is just as important as knowing what you do like, and just that you can cross that off your list. So no matter what, you can do this, and just taking that first step. I know it can be scary because, again, it usually is anticipation that gets you. It will be so worthwhile. And no matter what, no matter if it's a wonderful experience or a not so great one, you'll learn something from it, whether that's something about yourself or something about the world. And you'll take that with you as you continue to move through life.
Well, that's sage advice, and it sounds like you're well on your way to becoming a wonderful management consultant with that kind of attitude and perspective. So, thank you so much, Brittany, for taking the time today to talk with me. Really appreciate it.
Of
Uh,
course. Thank
And
you so much, Jeff. This was really, really awesome.
yeah, and good luck with the rest of the year and your future endeavors. Uh, really. I hope for the best and hope that your book does well. I'll put the link to the book down in the description, so if people want to check it out, they can go there. And I'd also like to thank our sponsor, Alaska Airlines, for our Civic Bootcamp sponsor, for helping put this together. So thanks again, Brittany, and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And the same to you and everyone else watching.